So the first verse in question is Second Chronicles 7:14. Second Chronicles 7:14 is by far one of the most misquoted, if not the misquoted, and misinterpreted verses of all time, right? Whenever you see prophecy or somebody talking about prophecy or somebody prophesying about America or somebody giving some type of word, a lot of times they are coming from, or you will use Second Chronicles 7:14. Also, too, a lot of times Second Chronicles 7:14 is used to talk about revival, right? When people want to talk about revival, or how does God bring about revival to America, or bring about revival to wherever people are at, people will go to Second Chronicles 7:14. But it's some interesting facts. It's some very interesting facts about Second Chronicles 7:14. So, like I said, it's probably one of the most misquoted scriptures of all time. But did you know that Second Chronicles 7:14 was a part of an answered prayer that God was giving Solomon? Right. So the picture you see as the background is supposed to depict Solomon, at the temple. You see people colored in behind him, and you see smoke coming off of this basin, and you see what looks like golden animals somewhere at the bottom, right? This is supposed to be a depiction of the temple, right? So this is supposed to be the depiction of the temple. In chapter 6, Solomon is praying to God and praying a prayer of dedication, asking God to do some things, right? And then in chapter 7, the 13 verses before Second Chronicles 7:14, Solomon is dedicating the temple to God, right? And when it picks up around, I want to say around the 11th, the 12th verse, somewhere around there, God comes in and answers the prayer. For example, so you look at verse 12 in Second Chronicles 7 verse 12. It says, then the Lord appeared to Solomon by night and said to him, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a house of sacrifice. So right there, I have it underlined, says, I have heard your prayer. It says, then the Lord appeared to Solomon by night, right? So what we're coming into and what we're about to take out of context is God answering the prayer of Solomon, right? We're not seeing God give us a magic answer to solve problems of revival or tell us something to do in order to get him to move. What we're about to see is an answered prayer, right? And God says, and have chosen this place for myself as a house of sacrifice. Verse 13, when I shut up heaven and there is no rain, or command the locusts to devour the land, or send pestilence among my people. Verse 14, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and I will heal their land. Right. So some remnants of verses 12 through 14 were first stated in chapter 6, verses 28 through 30, which we're about to look at down below. So verse 14 is God responding by using the same words, the same style, the same pattern of the prayer that he is now granting for Israel. So you look at Second Chronicles 6, verse 28. It says, when there is famine in the land, pestilence or blight or mildew, locust or grasshoppers, when their enemies besiege them in the land of their cities, whatever plague or whatever sickness there is, whatever prayer, whatever supplication is made by anyone or by all your people Israel. Notice it said Israel, right? This chapter and verse that is in question was written to the people of Israel. It was not written to Gentiles, right? So continuing on, it says, when each one knows his burden and his own grief and spreads out his hands to this temple, then hear from heaven your dwelling place and forgive and give to everyone according to all his ways, whose heart you know, for you alone know the hearts of the sons of men. So verses 28 through 30 was Solomon's prayer to God, saying that, yo, God, if this happens, please be merciful on us. If that happens, please be merciful on us. If this happens, we will stretch our hands out towards this temple, right? Participating in worship to you in this temple, which is what Second Chronicles 7:14 was revolving around, dedication to the temple of God. It says, if we do this, then you will hear from heaven and your dwelling place, and forgive and give to everyone according to all his ways, whose hearts you know, for you alone know the hearts of the sons of men. So going back to verse 14, it says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land. Using the same type of style, same type of pattern, even using some of the same wording, talking about the locusts and the land and all sorts of type of stuff in verses 12, using the same type of wording to say, I am answering your prayer. So he's answering a prayer. So the verse was saying that if Israel did something and they go get right before God, that God will heal and forgive, right? It's what this verse is not stating is that Israel already did something wrong, and in order for them to get right, they must do the steps presented in verse 14 to absolve themselves. So the verse is saying, if this were to happen, this is what we would do, and would you please heal us? God answers the prayer and says, if this thing were to happen, I would heal you and I will forgive you. The verse was not saying that they currently did something wrong and they were currently in some mess, and that in order to get absolved from the mess, that they have to um get on their face, humble themselves, and pray so God will heal their land, right? And we take that latter misinterpretation and say, okay, America is in some deep stuff. America got problems. The world got problems. We need to throw a Second Chronicles 7:14 campaign. We need to throw a Second Chronicles 7:14 conference, and we need to do these things in order for God to heal America and redeem America. Let's get everybody on the phone and get them to pray so we can have God heal America. The number one question, the thing that comes into question is, if this was talking to Israel, this has nothing to do with you and I, because we're Gentiles, right? So we're Gentiles in this context. We're not Israel. We're not Israelis. We're not Israelites. We're not Jews, right? This was talking to the people of Israel in that context in regard to worship at the temple, in the dedication of the temple via Solomon. This has nothing to do with us, right? Another way this has nothing to do with us is because America can't get on its knees and ask God for forgiveness, right? People in America can get on their knees and ask God for forgiveness, right? But God is not coming back for nations specifically. He's coming back for people in those nations, but done are the days where he's accounting everybody and lumping everybody up based on the nation that they're in. He's not doing that anymore. He's saying whoever believes on Jesus Christ will be saved, whether you are in America, England, Kenya, Zimbabwe, wherever you are at, Europe, Italy, Mexico, wherever you're at. If you believe on Jesus, you will be saved. It's not saying, okay, get everybody in America to get on their knees and pray so that I will heal their land, right? Because then what comes of that is all these prophecies on YouTube, right? Telling America to repent and do all these things, and God's about to judge America. No, God has already judged America and judged the rest of the world through Jesus, right? And he is not coming back to his enemies are made his footstool, and that will be the final judgment. But there's like that God has all of us through Jesus, and if receive Jesus, the wrath that God put on Jesus will be for us. Would be we could receive it, and it's for us, right? So he's not coming back for specific nations. He's coming back for people who believe in those nations, right? So we use this verse as a key to revival that God will bring revival if we do these things. But the reality is, did you know that to revive something means that something is dead, right? To revive something means that something is dead, right? And the church is not a dead church. So it doesn't need revival, it needs renewing. We need to renew our minds to what Jesus has done for us, the love that God has for us. We need to renew our minds. And in our renewing our minds, that's how you'll start to see the miracles, the gifts, the signs, the wonders, the outpouring of love, the outpouring of people being on fire for God. That's when you'll start to see that. But it's not going to come by revival because the church isn't dead.